When Jennifer Davis opened her car door at 2 a.m. and saw the homeless man standing over her with a crowbar, she thought she was about to die. You won't believe what happened next. The man who could have robbed her became her business partner, changing both their lives forever. But let me show you how this incredible story of redemption really began. David Williams, 42 years old, had been living on the streets of Detroit for 3 years. His clothes were layers of donated items that never quite fit right, and his face carried the weathered look of someone who had slept outside through too many harsh Michigan winters. His shopping cart contained everything he owned: a torn sleeping bag, some canned food, and a small photo wrapped in plastic. 5 years earlier, David had been a successful construction foreman with his own small contracting business. He owned a house, drove a pickup truck, and employed 6 men who trusted him with their livelihoods. But a series of economic disasters had destroyed everything. First, the housing market crashed and construction jobs disappeared. Then his wife Jessica left him, taking their daughter Amanda with her. Finally, medical bills from his father's cancer treatment drained his savings and forced him into bankruptcy. By the time David lost his house to foreclosure, he had already started drinking heavily to numb the pain of losing everything that mattered to him. The alcohol made it impossible to hold down the few jobs he could find, and soon he was living in his truck. When that was repossessed, the streets became his only option. Every night, David would look at that plastic-wrapped photo of Amanda from her 8th birthday party, when she still believed her daddy could fix anything. In the picture, she was wearing a princess crown and hugging him tight, both of them laughing at something silly he had said. That was before the bankruptcy, before the drinking, before David became someone his own daughter was embarrassed to know. The irony wasn't lost on him that he spent his days asking strangers for change while desperately wanting to provide for his family again. But David had convinced himself it was too late for second chances, too late to be the father Amanda deserved. He was wrong about that. But David had no idea that in just 12 hours, everything would change forever. It was a bitter February night when fate intervened in the most unexpected way. The temperature had dropped to below freezing, and David was searching for shelter near the financial district where the buildings blocked some of the wind. Most homeless people avoided this area because security guards usually chased them away. But David was desperate to get out of the cold. That's when he heard the sound of heels clicking quickly on the sidewalk, followed by a woman's voice talking urgently on a phone. Jennifer Davis, 38 years old, was the founder and CEO of Phoenix Technologies, a software company she had built from nothing into a multi-million-dollar business. She was leaving her office at 2 a.m. after working on a crucial presentation for potential investors. As Jennifer walked toward her car in the empty parking garage, she was so focused on her phone call that she didn't notice the figure following her from the shadows. David had initially approached hoping to ask for spare change, but when he saw the expensive car and business suit, something darker stirred in his alcohol-clouded mind. For 3 years, David had watched wealthy people walk past him without even acknowledging his existence. The resentment had been building, and tonight, cold and hungry and desperate, he picked up a crowbar that someone had left near a construction site. Jennifer ended her call and was fumbling with her keys when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned around to see David standing there, crowbar in hand, his eyes reflecting a mixture of desperation and shame that she would never forget. Little did David know, the person standing before him was about to change everything. What happened in the next few minutes will restore your faith in humanity. Instead of demanding her purse or threatening her, David stood frozen, looking at Jennifer with an expression she later described as complete internal conflict. For 30 seconds that felt like an hour, neither of them moved or spoke. Finally, David dropped the crowbar. The metallic clang echoed through the empty garage. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this. I'm not this person." Jennifer watched as David sank down onto the concrete, putting his head in his hands. Instead of running to her car and driving away, she did something that shocked both of them. She sat down on the ground next to him. "What's your name?" she asked gently. When David told her, she nodded. "I'm Jennifer. Are you hungry?" David looked up at her in confusion. This woman had every reason to call the police, to scream for help, to treat him like the threat he had just been. Instead, she was treating him like a human being. "I haven't eaten in 2 days," he admitted. Jennifer stood up and extended her hand to help David to his feet. "There's a 24-hour diner 2 blocks from here," she said. "Let's get you some food, and you can tell me how you ended up here." As they walked to the diner, David explained his story. He told her about the construction business, about losing everything, about Amanda, and how ashamed he was that his daughter couldn't even tell her friends what her father did for work because he didn't do anything at all. Jennifer listened without judgment, asking questions that showed she was really hearing him. When David mentioned his background in construction, her eyes lit up. "My company is about to break ground on a new headquarters building," she said. "We've been having trouble finding a construction manager who understands both the technical and human sides of the job." But what Jennifer didn't know was that David had been carrying a secret that would make her offer even more meaningful. The truth about his past? Absolutely unbelievable. Over breakfast at the diner, David revealed something he had never told anyone on the streets. Before his business failed, he had actually developed a revolutionary construction technique for earthquake-resistant buildings. He had spent years perfecting the design, even filing for patents before the financial collapse destroyed everything. "I gave up on the patents when I couldn't afford the legal fees," David explained, pulling out a folder he kept in his cart. Inside were detailed architectural drawings, calculations, and design specifications that Jennifer immediately recognized as brilliant. "I kept these because I guess I hoped someday I might be able to use them again." Jennifer studied the drawings with growing excitement. Her new headquarters was planned for a seismically active area, and David's designs solved problems that her architects had been struggling with for months. "David," she said carefully, "what if I told you that these designs could be worth millions of dollars?" David laughed bitterly. "Lady, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm a homeless drunk who just tried to rob you. Nobody's going to listen to anything I have to say about construction." When Jennifer realized the true value of what David possessed, she made a decision that would shock everyone, including her board of directors. But the biggest surprise was still coming. The next morning, Jennifer called an emergency meeting with her executive team and her architects. She arrived with David, who she had taken to a hotel for a shower, shave, and new clothes. The transformation was remarkable. Cleaned up, David looked like the successful businessman he had once been. "I want everyone to meet David Williams," Jennifer announced to the confused room. "He's our new construction consultant and possibly our new business partner." The reaction was immediate and negative. Her CFO pulled her aside. "Jennifer, have you lost your mind? You can't bring a homeless person into a multi-million-dollar construction project. What will the investors think?" But Jennifer had done her homework. She had spent the morning having David's designs reviewed by independent engineers, and the feedback was unanimous. His earthquake-resistant technology was revolutionary and could transform construction standards across the country. "David isn't just homeless," Jennifer told her team. "He's an innovator whose life circumstances don't define his abilities. We're going to help him get back on his feet, and he's going to help us build something extraordinary." The partnership faced immediate challenges. David struggled with alcohol addiction, and there were days when he couldn't function. Jennifer arranged for him to enter a rehabilitation program, but she also gave him something more valuable, a reason to get sober. She offered him a formal position as Director of Innovative Construction, contingent on his successful completion of treatment. What Jennifer offered next was beyond anything David could have imagined. Their lives were about to change in ways neither could have dreamed possible. The rehabilitation program was the hardest thing David had ever done. For 6 weeks, he battled withdrawal symptoms, confronted the shame and trauma that had led to his drinking, and slowly rebuilt his confidence. Jennifer visited him every week, bringing updates on the construction project and reminding him that people were counting on him. During one particularly difficult session, David broke down completely. "I can't do this," he told his counselor. "I've been a failure for so long. I don't remember how to be successful. What if I let everyone down again?" His counselor, a former addict himself, looked David in the eye. "Success isn't about never falling down. It's about getting up one more time than you fall." Jennifer saw something in you that night in the garage. The question is, are you ready to see it in yourself? The turning point came when Jennifer brought David a letter. It was from Amanda, his daughter, who was now 13 and living with her mother in California. Jennifer had tracked down David's ex-wife and explained the situation. "Dad," the letter read, "Mom told me about your new job and that you're getting help. I've missed you so much. I kept the picture from my birthday party where you promised to teach me how to build a treehouse. Maybe when you're better, we can build one together." David cried for the first time in years, not from sadness, but from hope. But just when David was about to complete the program successfully, something happened that almost ruined everything. 3 days before David's graduation from rehab, a local newspaper ran a story about Jennifer's company titled "CEO's Risky Gamble, Hiring Homeless Man for $1 Million Project." The article painted David as a potential liability and questioned Jennifer's judgment in trusting someone with such a troubled past. The story went viral on social media, with critics calling Jennifer irresponsible and investors threatening to pull funding from the project. The board of directors held an emergency meeting and voted to terminate David's contract before he even started. Jennifer faced the biggest decision of her professional life. She could save her company's reputation by distancing herself from David, or she could stand by her belief in second chances and risk everything she had built. David heard about the controversy while still in treatment. Devastated and convinced he had ruined Jennifer's life just as he had ruined his own, he prepared to quietly disappear back to the streets rather than cause her any more trouble. But Jennifer had made her choice. She called a press conference that would change public perception forever. Standing at a podium with David's architectural designs displayed behind her, she made a statement that brought the room to silence. "David Williams is not a risk," she declared. "He's an asset that our society threw away because we judge people by their circumstances rather than their potential. In 6 months, when we break ground on a building that will withstand earthquakes and save lives, you'll understand that the real risk would have been not giving him this chance." The room erupted with questions, but Jennifer continued. "Mr. Williams will be joining our company as promised. Furthermore, we're establishing the Second Chance Innovation Fund, which will identify and support other talented individuals whose potential has been overlooked because of temporary setbacks." David watched the press conference from the rehabilitation center, tears streaming down his face. Someone believed in him enough to risk everything. He couldn't let her down. 18 months later, the transformation was complete in ways that seemed impossible. David had not only successfully managed the headquarters construction, but had also licensed his earthquake-resistant technology to construction companies across 3 states, generating millions in revenue. What happened next will bring tears to your eyes. The reunion David never thought possible was about to happen. The grand opening of Phoenix Technologies' new headquarters was scheduled for a Saturday in October. The building stood as a testament to innovation, featuring David's revolutionary design elements that had already been adopted by other major construction projects. Media outlets that had once criticized the partnership now called it a model for corporate social responsibility. David was standing in the lobby, greeting visitors and explaining the building's unique features, when he saw a familiar face in the crowd. Amanda, now 15, was walking toward him with Jennifer and his ex-wife. "Dad?" Amanda's voice was tentative, but her smile was genuine. She had grown into a beautiful young woman, and David could see intelligence and kindness in her eyes that reminded him of the little girl from the photograph. "Amanda, sweetheart." David's voice cracked as he knelt down to her level. "You're here." Jennifer invited us, Jessica said, and David was surprised to see pride in his ex-wife's eyes instead of the disappointment he remembered. She told us about everything you've accomplished. I'm sorry I didn't believe you could change. But the real surprise came when Amanda pulled out a set of blueprints from her backpack. I've been taking engineering classes, she said shyly. I designed something for you. David unrolled the plans and gasped. Amanda had designed a treehouse using principles from his earthquake-resistant technology. It was brilliant, creative, and showed a natural understanding of structural engineering that took his breath away. I was hoping, Amanda said quietly, that maybe we could build it together, like you promised when I was little. David pulled his daughter into a hug that lasted 5 minutes, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. In that moment, David understood that his greatest construction project wasn't any building. It was rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. 3 years later, David Williams serves as Vice President of Innovation at Phoenix Technologies, a position Jennifer created specifically for him. The company has become a leader in earthquake-resistant construction, with David's designs being used in hospitals, schools, and emergency shelters worldwide. Amanda is now in college studying structural engineering, inspired by her father's comeback story. She interns at Phoenix Technologies every summer, working alongside David on projects that combine cutting-edge technology with humanitarian goals. Jennifer and David have become more than business partners. They're friends who understand that success is measured not just in profits, but in lives changed. The Second Chance Innovation Fund has helped over 100 people rebuild their careers and their lives. The company that almost fired David for being a liability now showcases his story in recruitment materials, proving that talent and determination matter more than circumstances. David's journey from homelessness to corporate leadership has been featured in business schools as a case study in unconventional hiring and social responsibility. But David's greatest achievement isn't his professional success or financial recovery. It's the fact that Amanda keeps the photo from her 8th birthday party on her desk at college next to a new picture of the treehouse they built together last summer. The man who once saw himself as worthless now knows his value is immeasurable. The hands that once held a crowbar in desperation now hold blueprints for buildings that will protect families for generations. The voice that once begged for spare change now speaks at conferences about innovation and second chances. David's transformation reminds us that potential exists in the most unexpected places, that one person's belief in another can change everything, and that our worst moments don't define our worth. Sometimes, the people we're quickest to dismiss are the ones with the most to offer. Have you ever given someone a second chance when others wouldn't? Share your story in the comments below, because everyone deserves to know that redemption is possible, that talent can emerge from tragedy, and that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to believe in the power of second chances today. Remember, you never know when your willingness to see potential instead of problems might change not just someone else's life, but your own perspective forever.